The people of Israel are doomed. The written letter of the law condemns them. Esther, who is the Jews' hidden trump card, has moved to intervene on her people's behalf. But she sensed her moment to strike was not quite right. The triune God, who is mighty to save, was not quite ready for Esther to play her hand. He has one important night installed for Xerxes to live through before he unleashes Esther's earthquake on Haman. Let's go straight to that important night. Esther chapter 6 verse 1. That night the king could not sleep, so one was commanded to bring the book of the records of the Chronicles, and they were read before the king. Of all nights, it just happened that Xerxes had insomnia on this night. Perhaps if I have someone read out some records, those things on my mind will slip away and I'll drift off to sleep, Xerxes probably thought. So he calls for some books or scrolls on his favourite topic. How about a dose of the life and times of Xerxes? No doubt there were many volumes on this topic. But his attendant's hand purposefully reaches for a very specific volume. If you ask the attendant now, he couldn't tell you why he picked that specific roll or scroll. And it was found written that Mordecai had told of Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's eunuchs, the doorkeepers, who had sought to lay hands on King Ahasuerus. Then the king said, "What honour or dignity has been bestowed on Mordecai for this?" And the king's servants who attended him said, "Nothing has been done for him." On this very night, before the morning that Haman intended evil towards Mordecai, the volume that was read to the king related to a long-forgotten event, something that had happened years earlier. The name of God is not mentioned once in this book. But if you don't see God in Esther, you're not looking hard enough. This is a very long game God is playing. Look at all the things he has to have in place to ensure everything plays out in perfect timing. God has ensured that Mordecai didn't return to Jerusalem but was living in Susa. God ensured that Mordecai adopted Esther when her parents died. God ensured Mordecai hears of a plot to kill the king years ago. God ensures Esther is picked to be queen in front of all other women so that she can pass on Mordecai's discovery without attempting to steal the credit for herself. God ensures Xerxes doesn't reward Mordecai at that time. Then hours before Haman would ask for the life of Mordecai, God ensures that Xerxes can't sleep. God ensures Xerxes' attendant picks one scroll among hundreds. Before Xerxes falls asleep, God ensures the accounts of Mordecai's unrewarded heroics are brought to the king's attention. How great is our God! We get just a tiny glimpse into the many details he's overseen in Mordecai's life. God is just as interested in the details of your life and mine. He's ensuring events do or don't happen in our lives, just like Mordecai's. He has bigger plans for us than simply what's happening today or tomorrow. Verse 4. So the king said, "Who is in the court?" Now Haman had just entered the outer court of the king's palace to suggest that the king hang Mordecai on the gallows that he had prepared for him. The king's servant said to him, "Haman is there, standing in the court." The king said, "Let him come in." Oh, Haman, if you only knew the hand of God was moving against you. Haman's about to walk into a whirlwind of destruction. The very man he hates, he's going to be humbled before. And then he's going to confront an earthquake named Esther that will crumble the foundations of his world. If he wasn't so evil, you'd almost feel sorry for him. You never want to be on the opposing team against God. Never. So Haman came in, and the king asked him, "What shall be done for the man whom the king delights to honour?" Now Haman thought in his heart, "Who would the king delight to honour more than me?" You see the dangers of an overinflated ego. Pride blinds us to truth. Haman's just been telling all his friends how great he was. "I'm the only man on this planet the king could possibly want to honour," Haman believes with absolute certainty. And we see with Haman's reply, Haman's evil desires. And Haman answered the king, "For the man whom the king delights to honour, let a royal robe be brought, which the king has worn, and a horse on which the king has ridden, which has a royal crest placed on its head. Then let the robe and horse be delivered to the hand of one of the king's most noble princes, that he may array the man whom the king delights to honour, then parade him on horseback through the city square and proclaim before him, 'Thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delights to honour.'" In case you missed Haman's intentions, Haman isn't happy to be the second most powerful man in the world. His eyes are firmly set on Xerxes' throne. This fantasy reward coming from the mind of an egomaniac, it's the thing Haman's been secretly plotting and dreaming about. Oh, to be king! From Ezekiel 28, we learn that Lucifer became so impressed with his own beauty, intelligence, power, and position that he began to desire for himself the honour and glory that belonged to God alone. It's been said that we become like that which we worship. Satan's man Haman is certainly following in Satan's footsteps. Then the king said to Haman, "Hurry, take the robe and the horse as you have suggested, and do so for Mordecai the Jew, who sits within the king's gate. Leave nothing undone of all that you've spoken." Haman was sick to his core at hearing the name Mordecai come from the lips of Xerxes. And not just Mordecai, but Mordecai the Jew, the mortal enemies of my family. This was the beginning of a really bad day for Haman. I picture these events as the final stages of a game of chess where a beginner is playing a master. Haman realises this is a very bad sign, but he's clueless how close he is to checkmate. So Haman took the robe and the horse, and no doubt his metaphorical tail was firmly between his legs, arrayed Mordecai and led him on horseback through the city square, and proclaimed before him, "Thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delights to honour." Mordecai was probably highly embarrassed at this over-the-top public display and fuss made over him. I wonder what Mordecai made of all this. Surely he suspected the hand of God, especially when he saw that it was Haman that was forced to lead him round and make the proclamations. Afterward, Mordecai went back to the king's gate, but Haman hurried to his house, mourning and with his head covered. When Haman told his wife Zeresh and all his friends everything that had happened to him, his wise men and his wife Zeresh said to him, "If Mordecai, before whom you have begun to fall, is of Jewish descent, you will not prevail against him, but will surely fall before him." Haman's incessant self-adulations abruptly cease. His wife and fake friends, just the day before, were forced to listen to this selfish man's greedy imaginations. They now turn on Haman. They say, if Mordecai is a Jew, you're done for. Yet they know he's a Jew. Haman's been bragging for days about how he's going to kill Mordecai the Jew and the entire Jewish people. The very last verse of our study today, verse 14. While they were still talking with him, the king's eunuchs came and hastened to bring Haman to the banquet, which Esther had prepared. Haman could console himself in the knowledge that at least he had that lovely, private, royal banquet to attend with the king and queen.